what are some examples of these incentive mechanisms working out, where either they are hyperstructures or something that parallels hyperstructures that maybe take into consideration your critique? Are there examples, total or even partial, in the real world that are driving the types of behavior you're talking about?
Yeah, there are. Once you get into this world, then you start to see it's possible in this frame to see everything as incentive mechanisms, and maybe to your own detriment, because life is much more than the incentive landscapes that we ski on. But
Incentive mechanisms and psyops all the way down.
that's right.
Just don't ask those questions.
We haven't said what a mechanism is, and so maybe it's worth just saying what a mechanism is, which is that so the field of game theory is about studying games and saying what's your best move in a game. And so in checkers, it's known what the best move is for every single position that you might be in the game. The same is true for tic-tac-toe. But for more complicated games, it's much harder. So for example, for poker, it's much harder to know what the perfect move is because it's a game of incomplete or imperfect information. And so that's game theory. And it says, like, given the rules of the game, what is the best move? And then mechanism design is the inverse of that. And so it is, given the outcomes that I want, given the moves that I want people to make, what is the best game? It inverts it inverts game theory. And one of my favorite mechanisms, which is often talked about, is the problem of cutting a cookie. And you've probably heard of this one. It's, when you and your sibling have one cookie to share and you're trying to figure out how you're going to split it among the two of you. Of course, what you could do is probably what you did, especially what I did when I was a kid, which is, I split it and then I gave him the smaller piece. But if you are a wiser person, then what you might agree to between the two of you is that whoever splits it, the other person picks it. And so when, that gives me an incentive to split it really equally, right? And I would, when we would play this game, I would make sure that the same number of chocolate chips were on either half of the cookie. I would spin it around a whole bunch to find the right line. I would go and get a knife from the kitchen in order to cut it perfectly. And then I would allow him to pick. And of course he would take a very long time picking which side because he had to inspect it from all different angles. And so this is a beautiful mechanism because it is a mechanism to ensure fairness, at least with two people. And so what we're interested in mechanism design is ideas like that. That's a mechanism, right? Is an agreement. It really is an agreement, and it's what law is based off of. Is the sort of like agreements that you can come to, and then sticking to your agreements when it comes time to go and execute them. And so that's the object of study. And examples of them, let's see. I mean, we could talk about like Uniswap and how Uniswap incents people to pool. We could talk about Ethereum and how Ethereum incents people to provide security and block ordering. I don't know. Like sometimes it's hard to tell which of these are actually useful to talk about. Is one of those interesting?
Maybe we'll start here for a second. Can you think what does it mean to have a hyperstructure that's free and not valuable?
Valuable to own. So he said free and valuable, but if you then go and read the post, he says it's free to use and valuable to own. And so really that's the thing, because the story that was being used under that is that it's worth buying some token because the token is going to go up in price, and it's going to go up in price despite the fact that you're not charging for using the protocol. And that's the thing that I don't think can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are all of these other ways. I mean, I haven't applied them, but there's these other ways of actually making money besides for charging end users for access. I live in Maryland now, and it seems like every single beach, is charging you, and it really sucks. It's like a small plot of land. But if you get further out, you find some really good beaches, but then you got to find a place to stay. So those Airbnbs will charge more for you to stay there. So proximity, let's say, to something that is valuable can be a way of finding a way to, let's say, charge somebody something. and still be unstoppable to the extent that something like a Uniswap is unstoppable, because you still need someone to provide liquidity. It seems like there could be a way to have something that is free to use and valuable to own, just by redirecting the costs, from
Yeah.
users.
I think that's right. And I think that, for example, one of the things that GitHub does, because GitHub is a big believer in open source, is they structured it so that if you are on a team that open sources your code, then you get GitHub for free. And if you're a team that wants, a private repository, then you need to pay for that. And I think that that's an example of what you're saying, is that they've found this clever way to fund public goods. They're literally funding a public good there. The public good of open repositories, by charging somebody for, charging a different user class for something. And this happens all the time, right? Like Google does this a whole bunch, where they also kill a bunch of products, but they create a bunch of products that are available for free. They're available for free because they make so much money off of their search business that they can offer all of these other things at no cost. And it like has some synergies with what they're doing, but also it's just a public good. So one of my favorite examples of this is Google Trends. Do y'all use Google Trends a whole bunch? I mean, that is like an incredible resource. How is it possible that I can go and just, not only can I search and find things, but I can search and find out how much other people are searching things? That's incredible. And it's available for free. And why is that possible? Because Google has the biggest margins of any company in existence. So there's, in general, this is known as taxing the congestible. And so the phrase taxing the congestible, which is actually just one I learned from Iwaki on the previous podcast, is the idea that there is some set of things that is finite, and so you can charge for it, and then the other things you can offer for free. And so in Ethereum, the example that Iwaki was giving was, you are charging for block space, but then for free you give transaction explorers. So like people will reply to your queries about like which transactions have taken place. They're not being paid to offer that service. And this is actually kind of important for the functioning of Ethereum, and there's ways in which it's enforced game theoretically. But there's another example of a way in which you can tax the congestible, and these are the sorts of business models I'm really excited about. I mean, this is what social entrepreneurship is often about. Social entrepreneurship tries to find ways in which you can profitably charge for one thing, and then in order to fund another thing. And lots of businesses are built on the back of doing that sort of work, especially if it can be done in profitable ways. So another company to brag about is EcoDrive. EcoDrive is a company that allows you to, for every product that you sell, you can plant a tree. And they just offer Shopify integrations. And if you're a business that is selling some sort of product, well, this is like a win-win, because A, you get to ensure that a new tree is planted, and B, you get to have increased click-through and conversion on your website, because people would prefer to buy a product that has like a real environmental impact. And so this is the stuff that I'm excited about for public goods funding. And I don't know if that like answers your question as examples of like, clearly things can be free and still valuable.